Hey, everybody, welcome back to this episode of Think Business Live, part 3, which I'm really looking forward to, Ray. It's been great talking to you these last couple Fridays. Dr. Ray McKinley, author of Ride the Elephant, The Journey to True Success, raymckinley.com. And we've been talking a lot about inspiration. We've been talking a lot about going inward. We've been talking a lot about the questions that we should be asking ourselves for growth. We've been talking about accountability. You know, when somebody, what I want to talk about real quickly before we dive into the book is the title of the book, right? Ride the Elephant. Where did that come from?
Okay. Well, the title of the book was Ride the Elephant. I had a number of titles beforehand, but what really came to me was the story that the book begins with is about those situations in our life that we don't want to talk about or are too sensitive to talk about. We are easily hurt, regret. We may have unforgiveness toward another person. And in our family, we had an incident in our family that was Brian, at 1.5 years old. We never talked about it as a family, and I felt responsible for his death. I had others felt responsible for, obviously my parents felt responsible for the death. And it's something we never talked about. And in fact, we didn't talk about it until 30 after it happened, and I brought it up at a family get-together, and we finally addressed the elephant in the room. And what I realized is how we all have those situations in our life that we don't address. And it all comes down to the core beliefs that we have that respond the way we do. And it's the elephant, and it leads to the elephant in the room. So addressing that is what the book is about.
Right, really writing
from 16 different.
Yeah, but and so it's not just addressing, but it's like writing it, right? And so I mean, getting really on it. Yeah, I love
Absolutely.
that. And what I love about the cover with, you know, there's always, you know, an elephant with the trunk up is always considered good luck. And I love the whole element. I also want to talk about and diving into, as you're talking about, for the, you know, the forgiveness. I want to get to that, but you know, the book, The Journey, Ride the Elephant, The Journey to True Success. Let's talk about the journey, right? Because the journey is never easy. It's not an overnight thing. You know, your book is beautifully laid out, an easy read. But, you know, the journey of taking a sentence from it, and we talked about this on a past time together these past couple of weeks, giving yourself and surrendering to an unknown timeline of the journey, but doing the work along the way. So can you kind of talk a little bit about that?
Yes. The thing about timeline is it was 30 years, 40 years, and still going. Because as we look at these situations, the dichotomies that I address, it's like I talk about red behavior versus blue behavior. Red behavior would be that behavior that we're wanting to stop and say, you know, this behavior is kind of keeping me stuck here. I'm not really progressing the way I want to progress. When you start looking and value judging yourself and saying, I'm not really getting the outcomes I want, all you have to do is look at some of those red behaviors, red responses, red beliefs. And then if you start, you begin to start having more blue feelings about it. And as you go from red to blue, living in a life of purple, in other words, in my schematic of things, where we're always trying to move more, have more blue behavior and less red behavior. So it's a timeline, it's a transition, it's over time. However, if we just stick our head in the sand and just ignore those situations, We never, any of us, that's what we do. We just bowl ahead and we do it the way we've always done it. And you are helping people get unstuck. That's your mantra.
Yeah.
And I would think that most of what you're trying to get people unstuck from is getting out of that red response, getting out of that red behavior, getting out of those things that cause us to stay stuck. Because you can give someone a formula. You can give them the gaming way to success, but true success is changing these core blue behavior. So we're always on this continuum, and we fall back at times, and we advance at sometimes. You know, when I start looking at some things, myself would rate myself as on a scale of 1 to 10. I said I'm a 1 or 2 at this. You know, and then I finally feel like I've graduated when I'm a 4 or 5. You know, I might never in my lifetime reach the 10, and that's okay as long as I'm striving to make that better for myself.
Yeah. I want to talk about forgiveness. You talked about it earlier in the talk. I think forgiveness is so important and yet can be very difficult. And so can you kind of talk about the journey of forgiveness and how you write about it and the steps that people can take to evolve and to get, to work through it?
Well, the first thing we have to do is recognize, with forgiveness, the challenge with that is the people we are unforgiving they don't deserve to be forgiven. What they did to me, they don't deserve it. I will never forgive that for anything. And they're so angry, and it creates so much anger and anxiety and stress and blame and heartache and stressfulness. And as long as you have that hatred, bitterness in your heart, you're never going to be able to put yourself in a position to forgive. So the process of that is recognizing, that's really hurting me more than it's hurting them.
Yeah.
And when you forgive, letting someone off the hook, it's more for you than it is for them. And that's the power of forgiveness. We were just out here together here in Texas right now, and then my sister and I were talking, and we were talking about the power of forgiveness at our family get together, how important forgiveness was.
Yeah.
And someone was talking about this huge transition they had on birthday, and how the forgiveness piece was the key piece for their transition.
Yeah.
People can really, and that was the person that was my one sibling that when I sent the book to her to ask, she was one of the first person I asked to read it. She was upset with me because I was challenging the forgiveness issue, and she was mad at me, and she was angry at me, and she was really upset with me. And yesterday she said, Ray, the forgiveness piece that we started down this path 2 years ago with that book, it changed our life. Mm-hmm. Our life has never been better. Our relationship has never been better. My relationship with other people has never.
Yeah.
Test of my sister being able to forgive, it could pass the test of anybody. And so it was tough. And I knew it would be. I wrote it. I knew I was going to strike some chords that were not going to be pleasant for people to look at. However, when you look at them and you're really mad at me because I wrote it, instead of being mad at the author because I wrote it, I would encourage people to just stop and say, hey, I'm just asking you to think about it.
Yeah.
And when you do, that self-reflection and self-awareness will be transforming.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I love what you're talking about. There's something called that a lot of marketing companies use called identity transformation, where, somebody can see through an ad, through marketing, through a description, it's in sales too, and any product or service you buy, how you can see yourself transforming over time. And I think that that's important for people to remember. And I think sometimes forgiveness, you got to start with forgiving yourself, and for things as well. Let's talk about, and we've talked about this a little bit on some of our past interviews the last couple of weeks, but the ideal person to read this book is whom?
You broke up a little bit, but the ideal person to read this book is a person who says, I think the reason I say that is if it doesn't have value for you, if you don't think, well, this book doesn't fit for me, trust me.
Yeah.
And you
the connection is a little spotty.
Will become more helpful.
Yeah. Right.
So
Ray, the connections really.
Yeah.
The connection's really spotty. I'm not hearing a lot of what you're saying, but
well, that's not good.
Yeah. but I do want to encourage everybody to
I'll move around a little bit and see if I can get a little better.
Yeah. But I do want to encourage everybody.
Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, I can hear you better now. Yeah.
Well, I think when you look at forgiveness and the ideal person to read this book is a person, this might not fit for me and I don't need this book, but trust me, there'll be other people in your life that you'll be identifying, this is the missing piece that I have in my relationship with X, and this is the missing piece I have with my relationship with Y. Let me try on these strategies. Not necessarily start telling people what they should do, but the book offers you suggestions to process the other person, the significant person in your life, to have a transition. And so that's what the power of it is. And I find that a lot of people, when they're helping other people, they help themselves. When I started processing this material in the classroom, I found it was more helpful to me than it was anybody.
Yeah. Yeah. I love it. All right. So how have you grown since you wrote the book?
Well, I talked about a scale of 1 to 10. When I was a 2 and a 3 on a lot of those continuums, and I'm now at 5, 7, and 6, and I'm feeling pretty good about it. But the big transformation for me was to forgive myself. That was the most significant thing. Forgiving myself for my brother's death. That was huge. The other thing that was helping me was I stopped value judging other people. I stopped shooting on them. I stopped having the answer for them that I knew they needed to have, and I was out there to tell them. And it causes me to be arrogant, it caused me to be self-righteous, caused me to be not sensitive and compassionate. And so I felt those were key things for me in the transformation that I went through as I started to really put these dichotomies together.
Yeah. Yeah. I appreciate our conversations, Ray, and I appreciate the conversations of you and not only writing the book, but also just your stories that, of your vulnerability and where you saw yourself, how you saw yourself evolve, and how you put a lot of that energy into the book and are helping so many people with the book and in the talks that you're doing and giving, not only to adults, but to the students as well in the schools that you go in. So thank you. It's a lot of energy to write a book. And a lot of times people ask me, because I wrote a book, what was the process of writing a book? Because I think as people are listening to you, they may say to themselves, wow, I have a story and I want to put it in a book, but how do I even start writing a book? What was your process for writing your book?
Well, first, I think I wrote the book for me. First of all, I wrote it for me and my family and my own kids. I wanted my grandkids to have something to read at some point later in their life. Now, that was kind of a cute story because my 6-year-old granddaughter, she asked me, Grandpa, would you write a book called called Ride the Baby Elephant. She wanted me to write a book about it so she could
I
read
love
it.
that.
So
Yeah.
I really, so it's, just neat things like that. I wrote the book mainly, wrote the book mainly for that. And then I wrote the book for people who are saying, I'm stuck, I'm frustrated, I can't get past this. And that's really what I help people do in the process of teaching this material in person. And it was a challenge to get it all down in written form. I think the book for me was just getting everything down and going back and saying, how is this going to make a difference for somebody else? How can I present this so I'm not shooting on the reader, but causing the reader to reflect and make his own self-discovery? It's not my job as a writer. I didn't take that as a job as my writer to start telling people what they needed to do and what they should do. Yeah. I was strictly there to get them to consider things that maybe they haven't considered before, uncovering their blind spot and causing that to have an advancement in thinking. And that was my goal. And I think for the most part, I think I achieved that.
Great. It's great. Well, I appreciate you being on the show. I appreciate you, sharing your wisdom, sharing your thoughts, sharing your guidance. Tell everybody where they can get the book, Ray.
Yeah, they can get it from Amazon, and it's there, Ride the Elephant, Ray McKinley. They can also get it on my website, raymckinley.com. And they can contact me at ray@raymckinley.com. And I'd love to hear from anybody else that would like to continue the conversation.
It's great. Well, I appreciate it. Here it is, Ride the Elephant. Ray, I appreciate you being on the show. Think community, if Ray can help, check out raymckinley.com or check out his book, Ride the Elephant, on Amazon. Ray, it's been great having you the last couple of weeks on the program. Thank you so much. And all the best to you and your book and everything that you do.
Thank you, John. Thank you, John. You're a great host. Thank you.